Good morning, everybody. Today's class 6 of CAD 212 on Wednesday, February 9th. Today in class, we're going to be jumping off into some roof information. We'll have a roof lecture at the beginning of class, talk about types of roofs. We'll talk about slope of roofs, and I have a pitch chart to show you. And we'll also talk about components of a roof. And when we jump into the Revit model, we'll talk about how to create those roofs, including an overhang, defining slope, and slope itself. We'll also talk a little bit more about hiding objects. We touched base on that a little bit last class and talked about temporary hide isolate, but there's a couple other ways that we can do that, and we'll talk about that as well. Also talk about editing floors and walls, and how to create openings in walls, such as if you have a large walkthrough that's bigger than a typical door walkthrough. So that's everything that we're going to cover today. So let's go ahead and jump into our roof lecture. So if we go to our files and in our documents, you'll notice I have a new file in here for y'all called roof info. So we want to open that up. And everything that we need to review is in here. First thing we'll do is start off with the roof parts diagram. And this is something you'll probably be referring back to, as some of these parts of the roof are going to be incorporated into your Revit drawing. It's very slow today. All right, here we go. Great. All right, so this is just a quick sketch, well, not sketch, a quick section view of a roof. It's somewhat detailed, but there can also be more details in a roof section, as you've seen in some of the plans that we looked at earlier in the semester. Some of the main things I want to draw your attention to, obviously we have our rafters right here, and then our subfascia, the new, and then we have our roof sheeting. You'll have a felt underlay and your shingles on top of that. I'm sure everybody's seen a lot of this going on right now, especially with roofs being replaced after Hurricane Ida. The things that I want to draw to your attention also are the things that we'll be drawing within Revit. We're going to be creating a fascia, and the fascia is this piece right here that runs, that covers that gap where the roof ends. This one has a subfascia. Sometimes you won't see it with a subfascia. Sometimes it'll just be the fascia attached straight to the rafters. We're also going to create a soffit. Soffit is this part that runs between the fascia and the exterior wall line of the building, and it covers the rafters from this part here as well. We're not going to do a freeze board, but that'll just cover that gap there. Sometimes that's just a little piece of molding to fill in that gap there. And then also we're going to be creating gutters. So the main things that we're going to be taking from this, obviously the general outline of how the roof works. It's good to know how that's put together, but we want to make sure that we pay attention to the location of the fascia, the soffit, and the gutters is what we're going to be creating. So this is just, you're not going to be tested on this. This is just reference material for you to refer back to. Next, let's go over the different roof styles. I've got a couple of different options in here for us to look at. One has a lot, one has a few in here. Let's just open up the bigger one. This is usually something that's on a quiz for you. It's obviously a little harder to do a quiz now, yeah, over Zoom, but I still want you to have this information because basically we're still going to be referring back to these different types of roof types. Specifically, you'll see more of these hip and valley roofs. So this is a typical hip roof, this little section right here. And then the valleys are obviously where these parts intersect. Another roof that you'll see a lot of is a gable roof, where it's open to the top. This hip is what gives it its name, and this is the gable that's right here. So it's the difference between the two. There's also a box gable roof where it comes out a little bit further. You'll see this in some of the older houses, the old New Orleans houses. Sometimes you'll have this gable come out further than the box, and you'll have a patio or something along this side right here. And sometimes you'll see a Dutch roof, a Dutch gable roof that's going to be incorporated into old New Orleans houses as well. Sometimes you'll see this one right here, but more likely it will be this Dutch roof. But just a general idea of different roofs that you'll see. Also, some of you may have shed roofs on some of your property. And if you just want to read through here and keep track of these other ones, it's just good to know. For a smaller outline of what we're looking at, we have this other one here, just a very much more straightforward list of roofs that we usually deal with. So here we have our gable and our hip roofs again, the biggest ones we'll look at. We've got your flat roof, shed roof, have our mansard roof. This is, you'll see a lot of these in suburbia as well, but also probably the most historic place that you'll see a mansard roof would be in Paris. And they look a lot better than our typical stateside roofs, but it's another way to think of it, a mansard roof as what you would typically see in Paris. And then the gambrel roof, very typical of a farmhouse roof. So once again, just another reference material. And then just these are the main two that we're going to be probably working with, the gable roof and the hip roof, and then combinations of those. And then my last chart here is a roof pitch chart. Once again, this is just for reference. I just think it's interesting because as we go along and create and learn how to make slopes of our roofs, you can see how this is going to work into Revit. But when we create a roof, it's going to be a certain type of pitch, and it's for every 12 inches across. So it's always going to be 12 inches across. A certain number of inches up is going to correspond to the degree of that roof. So if you're talking about a straight 12 roof, which is 12 across and 12 inches up, that's going to be a 45-degree angle, and that's going to give you the angle of that pitch right there. We're going to refer back to this pitch chart as far as how to do it 10, 12, 9, 12. This is just giving you a visual idea of what these pitches look like and what the degree translates to. But when we start doing a slope, creating sloped roofs in Revit, you're going to see that we're going to refer back to, I'll ask you to create a 612 pitch. You don't have to remember it's 26.5, but a lot of people like to see a visual representation of what that pitch is going to look like. Also, what's nice about having this is if you're ever hand drawing anything, or if you're in just AutoCAD, you can remember if you draw 12 inches this way, and then no matter how many inches you go up this way, if you wanted to go up 6 inches, you can create that slope at 6 inches. And that will give you that slope right there. That way it'll correspond to a Revit drawing or hand drawing. So it's just kind of good information to know about how to create that sketch, especially when we're looking at just hand drawing, going 12 inches by how many inches up will give you that slope and that pitch that you're looking for. Any questions about that? It's all pretty straightforward and all available for you here within your files under roof information. So you'll probably refer back to these different things throughout as we start creating our roofs. Okay, let's jump into how to create the roof, period. All right, let's jump into Revit.
Michelle, I do have a question.
Sure.
So, as you know, like some of us live in condos, duplexes, multifamily homes. How do you want us to go about doing the roofs if or do you want us to just create like the full building structure when we're doing our floor plans, or are we just focusing on like our domicile, like our living areas?
That's a great question. That's a couple of different ways that we can answer that. Let me sketch a couple things out real quick and we can get to that. Say for instance, you're in a double and like half of it's yours and half of it's somebody else's. Well, you can make it just a shotgun and just create the roof over your piece. If you're feeling more adventurous, then you can just duplicate this side over here as well. And then you can put the roof over the entire thing. But I know a lot of it, especially in our larger apartment complexes, it gets a little bit difficult to create that roof. So you can leave it just as the one space that you have and just create the roof over that. But if you're feeling, if you have more time to do it and you just want more experience, you can create it as a double and try and duplicate it as close to that original building as possible. So I'll leave that up to you. The main thing I'm looking at when I'm going to be looking at your work is to make sure that the roof is done correctly. And then once we get to the point where when we're taking our exam, I'll take a look at the roof to make sure that you have all the concepts down and how to create that. So good question. Not a great answer. Pretty much just leaving it up to you. The main thing is I want to make sure that you know how to create a roof and I can check your work after that. So does that help?
Okay, thanks.
Cool. Any other questions, y'all? Tanya, I believe you did have a question, an email question. We'll get to that one after the lecture, so don't let me forget about that. Okay, so let's jump into our roof. So I just got like a little shotgun house right here. First thing we're obviously going to do is go to our architecture tab, build panel, and then roof tool. If we do a little drop down on roof tool, you'll see there's a bunch of different things under here. Basically, our default is roof by footprint. This is what we're going to be using to start. There's also roof by extrusion, a roof by face. We'll talk about those later. And then there's also soffit, fascia, and gutters, how to create those as well. For the first half of the semester, we're just going to do roof by footprint. Second half of the semester, we're going to incorporate this other stuff in here. They're easy to do. I just want to make sure that we touch as much stuff as we can during this first half of the semester. So we're just going to start off by roof by footprint. So we're going to click on roof by footprint. When I started out my drawing, I didn't pay attention to where I was drawing my roof. So this is going to come up and warn me that I'm on the lowest level. It says you've created the roof on the lowest level. Would you like to move it to level 2? Yeah, honestly, what most people do is just ignore this and go no. And we'll see what happens when we do that. Next thing we want to do is come over to our properties and our type selector. In our type selector, we can pick this from a 9-inch roof or a 12-inch roof. So let's just start with the 12-inch, the default 12-inch roof here. We're not going to change anything on that right now. If you did want to change that later on, remember you'd go into edit type, duplicate, rename, and you can change the material to a roof shingle at that time if you like, but we're just going to use the basic generic roof at this time. And then notice that under our modify section, it defaults to a boundary line. And then here we have it defaults to pick walls. So you don't have to change anything right now. And I definitely always leave this at boundary line and pick walls because it's going to make things easier for you to draw your overhang. So if I don't change anything else, notice if we come in here, it's going to pick those walls for me. And if I just pick this edge, notice we have that set at a magenta line. And I'll just go ahead and just randomly pick. I'm not really paying attention to what I'm doing. I'm just picking these lines and let's see what happens. Notice I do have a slope symbol here, so I know that there is going to be a slope on all of these sides. So I'm creating a hip roof at this time. And now I'm just going to hit the green check mark. I got something that looks like that. That's just because I'm in this level 1 view. Let's jump to 3D and see what we did. Okay, well, where's my roof? If I take a look at here and hide this, you'll notice that there's my roof on level 1. That's because I didn't pay attention to what I was doing when I started this and just kind of jumped in and created my roof. Well, obviously it doesn't belong on level 1. What's nice about Revit is I don't need to delete it and redraw it. You know, sometimes there'll be times where we want to delete something and redraw it. Other times we can just take that object, highlight it, make it active, and then go back to our properties, and we can change where our properties are set here. So I'm going to move this. If we notice here, it's set on base level 1. And I'm going to move that from level 1 to level 2. So now we're looking a little bit better to where we want it to look. But notice also the roof is on the inside of the walls. It's not on the outside of the walls. So that's incorrect also. So I need to correct the way that's laid out. So I'm going to go back to level 1. My roof's not there for me to correct it. So how do I correct that then? Let's go back to level 2, and now I can see my roof, because remember I moved it to level 2. Now I'm going to click on that roof, make it active. Here I'm going to go to edit footprints. And remember when we took a look at these before, they're on the inside line of this wall, they're inside wall line. But we've got our toggles here in place, and we can just click on our toggles, flip those all to the exterior wall line. And now when we go back, would you like to attach walls to the roof? Sometimes we will. At this point, I don't want you to attach them because I want to show you a couple of different options to do that. And if we hit don't attach and jump back to 3D, we're going to look at something that looks like this. So our walls are still high and in place, but there's several ways that we can attach our walls to our roof and different ways that we can adjust that height. So that's why I've just kind of left these as is for now. So that's how to correct stuff. Let's do it another way. I'm going to go ahead and delete this roof. Let's do it another way. And this time we'll do it properly in level 2. All right, so now I'm going to draw my roof on level 2 where it's supposed to be. Architecture panel, architecture tab, build panel roof tool. This time I'm going to add a 1-foot overhang. So here in my options bar, I'm going to add a 1-foot overhang and just put 1 foot right there. And now when I come over and pick my walls, you can see where my location line is for that 1-foot roof overhang. And now when I hit my green check mark, I still don't want to attach that. And then I'm going to go to 3D. So we're looking better. Looking much better. So how do we attach these walls to our roof? Well, there's a fun little tool where we click on the wall. And then if we come back up here, we have attach top to base. So I want to attach this wall to the base of this roof. So I'll click on attach top to base, and now I'll click on the roof, and that's just going to pull that together nicely like that. I could also take one of these walls and change that from a top constraint to up to level 2. That's another way to change it. And I could take one of these walls and just change it to 10 feet. So it's 3 different ways that we can change the height of these walls. I'm going to take this one again, click on here, attach top to base, click on the roof, and let me hide this roof for a second. So what the difference is between the way we do these two is how they connect to the roof. So I actually prefer attach top to base because it's going to keep those two pieces connected. And there's certain times when we want to connect it, certain times we don't. To start off with, I like to keep them connected, and I'll know the difference between how you adjusted these wall heights just by the way they're connected here. Notice that the ones that we selected for attached top to base have this slope because the wall is coming up and adjusting to that roof line, such as if there were rafters along here. So it's going to attach to that roof. The ones that we just adjusted by height or by level are flat. So there's different ways that we can attach them, but I'll know which way to do it. So on an exam, if I say use attach top to base, and you just use the height adjustment, then that would be a point off. So I would be, but there's going to be times that we're going to be using these other ones. So it's good to know both, but usually when you're connecting your exterior walls to your roof, you want to use attach top to base. Let me turn this back on. I'm going to hide this again. Notice how when I deleted that, these walls went straight back up. That's because I deleted the roof line that they were attached to. These are staying in place because I did not attach them to the roof. So you can see how things move independently of one another at times, depending on how you constrain them. If I wanted these guys to match back to 20 feet, I would have to change this information over here. So this one I adjusted by the top constraint. I would have to change that back to unconnected, and I would have to change that to 20 feet. And to put this one back to 20 feet, all I did was change the height. So I'll put this one back to 20 feet as well. So now we're back to our original box. All right. Let me go back to level 1, and I'm going to draw a couple other walls in here to show you a couple other things. All right, so here we are on level 1. We're going to draw a roof on level 1 again. Let's see what happens. Remember, we'll go to our roof tool, and it's giving me that warning again. Do I want to move it up to level 2? Let's hit yes this time. So yes, we're moving that. We still want our 1-foot overhang, but I want to put a gable. Excuse me, I want to put a gable on this end, and I want a gable on this end. So as I create this roof, I'm going to make sure that this side has a slope symbol, that this side has a slope symbol, but I don't want it to slope on this part because I want this to be a gable roof, and I want this to be a gable roof over here as well. So let's unclick define slope. This is something that's going to come back when I ask you to create gable roofs or hip roofs. So we'll unclick that. And when I click on these two ends here, notice I don't have a slope symbol here. So I know that there's not going to be a slope here, not going to be a slope here. So these two will be gable ends here. So let's hit our green check mark, see what happens. You know, every time I tell you to put don't attach and we don't want to attach that, let's see what happens if we do attach it. And let's jump to 3D. So it looks pretty good from here. It looks like we did everything right. We've got our gable on our two ends, which looks really good. So let's see what happens when we hide the roof and take a look inside. Roof. So notice on here, since I did say, yes, let's attach all my walls, it even attached my interior walls. So unless you're doing like cathedral ceilings or something, you always want to make sure that we're not attaching those walls and we attach them separately, because it will attach your interior walls as well. So these walls should be flat on top, unless you're creating like a gable roof or something, a cathedral roof along that way. So and then it gets really difficult as far as like undoing this. There is ways to unattach and stuff, but you always have to make sure that the roof is there. So let's just kind of see how you would do that. So if I wanted to fix that, Actually, to fix it, I would just delete this roof and start over, because it just takes much longer to do it this way, but it's good to know. So I'm going to hide this wall because I need to hide this wall to have access to these walls. And now I'm going to click on this wall to make it active. And now I need to detach top to base. So I've hit detach top to base and I click on the roof. Then that's going to correct that. And now I can set this back to the height that I want if I wanted that set at 10 foot or up to level 2. Let's hide this. So you can see we still have those 2 sloped interior walls, but that's the reason why we don't always say, yes, let's attach all the walls to our roof the first time we draw our roof. All right, let me put all that back. So when we create this roof, let's click on it, make it active again. Let's jump over to our properties. If we scroll down here, notice here's our slope. Here's that, this one is defaults to a 9/12 slope. Refer back to our chart for that. But we can also change just the slope of the roof here. Say on your midterm exam, I may ask you to do a 3/12 slope. So you go here and you just change that to 3/12 and you change the pitch of that roof. And that's a much more shallow roof, obviously, but that's just how you change the slope on there. Let's click that, make it active again. And let's switch that to a 6/12 slope. So we've got overhang. We've got how to create that overhang. You add that size of the overhang on there. Define slope. That's the button that you click on if you want to have a gable or a hip roof. And then slope itself will give you the pitch of the roof and how we do that. So roofs are actually pretty easy to draw. Let's do a more complicated one so you can see what that looks like. Let's go back to level 1. Delete. All right, so I'm going to create a roof for this shape now. Architecture tab, build panel, roof tool. Yes, I'm going to move it to level 2. I want to create a 2-foot overhang this time. I want to make sure my defined slope is on because the only place I want to gable is on this spot right here. So now I'll just go around and pick the sides. This one I want the gable on, so I'm going to turn define slope off. And at this point, most people hit the green check mark and it's going to freak out and wonder what's going on. Well, it's because we have this extra line right here. When we picked our line, it drew this line here and here, so they're intersecting. We have to make sure that they don't intersect, so we have to correct that. So I'm going to hit continue. I'm going to use my trim extend tool to trim that off so that looks better. Now let's hit the green check mark. I do not want these walls attached. And now let's go to 3D and see what we're looking at. So we've got something really bizarre going on right here. Can anybody tell me why?
Do you have 2 roofs on there?
Excellent. Great. Yes, exactly. I forgot to delete that roof that I had on there before. So if you ever have anything that looks like that, this one I can just go back and delete. And now I've got something that looks more appropriate. At this time, I'm going to go ahead and select these walls. attach top to base, attach them there. I'll do the same with this one. Now, you'll notice that I have this one that runs through the entire house. And why does that happen? This is because when I created this original wall, I created it as to cut through the entire building, and I just added to it. So this is actually be something that I would need to correct a different way. So let's go back to level 1. And I don't want this interior wall running between my house. So since this is an exterior wall, I'm going to pull it back here. Let's go to 3D. And when I do that, it pulls that back. And now I can just connect this section right here. So we have something that looks a little bit better like that. So what I want you to do when you create a roof is just do it all as one exterior line for your roof line. Depending on how complex some of your roofs are, you know, they may turn out and look a little weird. That's why it's real important for you to make sure that you drop in your work that you've created so far, so I can take a look at it. Because some of y'all who have more complicated roofs, we may need to do a couple other steps, and we'll get back to that once I review your work. But just to create a basic roof, that's pretty much what we're looking at right there. Any questions about how to create a roof? I think once you kind of get into it and just start playing with it, it'll start making sense. But that pretty much covers all the roof basics at that point. Let's talk a little bit more about how to hide objects. You notice I use temporary hide isolate a lot. And this is the one I prefer. This is the one I prefer that you use also. But there's also times where we want to semi-permanently hide something. And there's 2 ways that we can do that. We can use a visibility graphics, or we can use hide in view. The one that kind of throws people off a lot and, is hide in view. So let's talk about that one first. And when we start getting to a point where we're actually creating sheets, we're going to use visibility graphics a lot as well. So what's the difference between the 2? So let's jump here and say we want to just hide the roof for now. Remember, the best way, always temporary hide isolate. It's easy to get back. But a lot of times people will click on the roof and it'll just default to a right click. And then you'll notice here I can do hide in view. And we'll just hide that element. And then people will forget how they hit it, and they'll like try and, you know, reset it here. I can't reset it here. If I go to my other views, you know, my roof is here. You'd be like, okay, my roof is definitely there. And you'll click on it, and then you'll go back to 3D and be like, okay, my roof is still gone. So this is when, yeah, it gets a little bit confusing. So how do I get that roof back now that I've hit it the way that I've done? So you're going to actually come down and use reveal hidden elements. It looks like a little light bulb. So if we click on reveal hidden elements, you see, okay, that's where my roof is. My roof is still there. I just hit it a different way. Now I need to reveal it a different way. So I'm going to click on it, make it active. At this point, I'm going to right click. And now we have unhide in view. So now we can unhide it, turn off reveal hidden elements, and the roof is back. You know, there's sometimes where you'll want to use that you just want to hide one section and kind of do it this way so you don't have to undo everything else. But the way you get it back is just hit reveal hidden elements, click on it. When it comes back, right click and do unhide in view, and then turn it off. And then another way that we can hide stuff, and this is how we will hide things when we create our sheets, especially when we get to a part where we add like exterior landscaping and stuff like that. We don't want our landscaping to show in our actual construction drawing. We don't want our landscaping to show in our elevation view. So a lot of times we'll have to hide those. And how we do that is we use visibility graphics. And there's two shortcuts to visibility graphics. You can either just type in it on your keyboard, VV or VG. And this will pop up. You don't have to do anything else. You can just type in VV or VG. So VV, and this will pop up this window. This is everything that's going to be created in your model. It's broken down into model categories, annotation categories, analytical, imported categories. Most of the ones that we use that we'll want to hide will be in model category, occasionally annotation categories, and if we do any importing, we'll hide things that are imported categories as well. But mostly we're going to just use this default here. We can filter the list by the different types of disciplines. So obviously we're not using mechanical right now. We are using architectural. So this is the tools that I want to have available. Say here I want to just hide my roof at this time. I'll click on roof, and if I hit apply, the roof is hidden, and I hit OK. So now my roof is permanently hidden in this view. If I hit reveal hidden elements, you can see that it's still there. And if I right click on it, I can unhide it here also. Or I can type VV or VG again and go back and turn my roof back on here. So we'll talk about visibility graphics a little bit later on in the semester as well. But when you're hiding stuff and you're starting to kind of figure out how to use everything, I definitely recommend using the temporary hide isolate before using the right click and hiding it here. It's just easy to get back and forth to. But as you start playing with Revit a little bit more, you'll get more comfortable using these different options. Any questions about hiding objects? Okay, cool. All right, we'll talk about editing walls and how to create openings in these walls as well. Editing walls and floors is similar to how we just edited our roof. You're going to use these a lot just because they're very helpful. So let's talk about walls and floors. So let me go back to level 1. Let me put a new wall in here. So say I have a big arch in this wall right here. I mean, before we would use a cut door opening that we used from our door components, but say if I have a large arch in this wall that I want to create for a special architectural visualization, there's a ways that I can do that. So I'm going to do that from 3D actually. So I'll jump to 3D. So I'm going to click on this wall. I'm going to go ahead and attach the wall. No, I don't want to attach that wall. Actually, let's make it a cathedral wall. Yeah, so I'm going to attach it to the roof, so we'll have a different profile there. Oops. So now when we take a look inside, I'm going to hide this wall in the front so I can get to that wall. And I'm going to hide the roof. And this is the wall that I actually want to edit. So at this point, I'm going to click this wall, make it active. Now I'm going to come up to edit profile. It's going to give me this warning saying that since it's already attached to a wall, it's actually going to remove it, but that's okay for now. So we'll just hit close. So basically just change that temper of the visualization from that arch to this shape right here. And when I finish it, it'll change it back to the cathedral arch that we had before. So now I'm just going to draw the shape of this wall that I want it to look like. So I'm going to just take these magenta location lines and I'm going to draw some more. So it's 3 foot. Yeah, put that up to 5 foot there. I'll do 5 foot here, so it's the location lines match. And I want to put an arch in this roof. So I'm going to use one of these arch tools here. I like the start and radius tool. I'll just start. I'll do the end, and then we can create our radius. I just have it set like that. Now when I hit my green check mark, I've got something that looks like that. I still have my wall that's attached to my roof, but I have a nice arched opening in that. Now let's reset everything real quick. Let's hide the roof again. And you can see how I have that arch in there as well. So this is real cool. I enjoyed this just because it adds some different elements to your buildings and things like that. If you wanted to add other elements to the interior, you can always use this, and you can make any shape that you want. Let me throw in a floor real quick, and we'll do the same thing for floors. We kind of touched on that briefly before. Oops, don't want that. I want to go back to level 1. Oops. Level 1, thank you. Notice when we created that arch, we have this opening in the wall here. It'll show that correctly for our architectural drawings. Let's do a floor real quick. I'll just use the default floor. And the green check mark. So now we just have a basic slab on here. Let's say I wanted to add a little patio area here. I'll go back to level 1. I'll select that slab, make sure it's in my properties. I'll go to edit boundary again, and here's where I can just kind of pull out and create like a patio here. Make this one like a little patio here as well. And if I hit my green check mark and go to 3D, we see how that was adjusted to make that. So there's ways that we can just adjust the building parts that we have just by using edit. We'll learn how to use edit a lot more. We'll end up using it a lot more as we go on, creating our buildings and such. So Revit is very flexible. You don't have to delete it and redraw it. You can just edit it a lot of times. Sometimes when things get too complicated, there you will want to delete it and start over, but you don't necessarily. So it's a very, very flexible, very user-friendly as far as editing your building. That's pretty much it for today's lecture. Any questions about today's lecture first? Any questions about this? Then we'll open the floor to other issues people are having.
Real quick, Miss Michelle.
Mm-hmm.
I have a question about the I hide my roof and wall when we were working on that arch, but I cannot get it back. And I already tried the temporary hide and isolate tool. So I'm missing my roof and my front wall.
Okay, jump down to the reveal hidden elements option. So if we hit on reveal hidden elements, they should be outlined in red. If they're still there, if not, you deleted them.
Yeah, they look the same like that.
Okay, then you want to go ahead and click on that, make it active.
Mhm.
Right click and do unhide in view. Oops.
Unhide in view, and the only option it gives me is by filter. I don't see any other. The elements in the category are both shadowed.
So that's because you should be able to come back down here under temporary hide isolate. They should be temporary hide isolate now because there is a difference. Because we go back to, notice that there's this cyan colored field here that tells us that it's a temporary hide isolate. Do you see that on your screen?
Yeah, I have the exact
Right.
same as you.
So when
Yeah.
if we try to do that with hidden elements, this element is going to show up as cyan. So it shows us that it is a temporary height isolate. So in order to get back to that, you just go back to your temporary height isolate, and you're going to do reset temporary height isolate and bring it back that way.
Beautiful. Alrighty. Thank you so much.
Yeah, no worries. Any other questions about today's lecture, y'all?
Hi, yes, I'm new, but I haven't started with the Revit. I don't know how to get to that.
Okay, do you have Revit at all on your computer?
No.
Okay, you need to go to Autodesk and download Revit 2020 on your computer in order to get started, but it's all on Autodesk, and you can download it from there.
And where is this like in the class notes? Because I couldn't find anything about the Revit. I think that's what I had emailed you about.
Okay, I'm not sure if I got your email. It's in the class lectures it's in the first lecture. In order to start this class, you have to have Revit 2020 on your computer, and it's all to download in Autodesk. So you go to the Autodesk website and you just download Revit 2020 specifically.
Okay. And from then on,
You need
I'll
to
just watch.
Yeah, you need to watch all the videos and get caught up because, yeah, the midterm is actually going to be a month from today.
Okay.
We don't have a lot of time left on this semester, so make sure that you get caught up with that. Basically, we have 2 weeks left, and then we are off for Mardi Gras. And then when we come back on the 7th, this midterm project will be due. And then on the 9th is going to be the midterm.
And all the information is in all the lectures.
And all the lectures, everything's in the lectures, everything's online with the YouTube link. I'll send out the YouTube link to everybody again today to make sure that you have it, but all lectures are online.
Okay. And
Right. Okay. Any other questions, y'all? Tanya, I don't remember what your question was that you had, but we can talk about it now if you want to. You still there?
I think I'm good. Is there any like code I need to access the Revit?
No, it's no, all online. You just go to the Autodesk website and locate that through the student view. Oh, Tanya, we could not hear you.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, Tanya, if you want to email me again, or we can meet separately. Unless anybody else has any other questions, we'll go ahead and drop. And then make sure to check that mod and make sure that you upload your work so I can check keep the tracking on that and make sure how you're doing on that. So that's it for today, y'all. Feel free to reach out if you have any other additional questions before this assignment's going to be due, but let's make sure that we get your progress tracked by this weekend. So, all right. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you. Have a great day.
You too.
Thank
Take
you.
care.
Bye.
Bye. All.